First and foremost, guys, thank you for having us here today. It's really nice to be here, to be in front of you guys. We're going to give an update of some of the highlights over the last 12 months. But I think it's key to say that we can't really do what we do at RCUK without you guys in the room. So first and foremost, thank you greatly for everything that you do. So from a clinical perspective, I'm just going to run through a few of the updates, our key updates from the clinical service team over the last year. Some of these link nicely into some of the discussion topics we've already had today, so that's always nice to know that we're singing from the same hymn sheet. So first and foremost, we've got a lovely picture there of an AED cabinet without the lock, Ben, for you, wherever you are in the room. There we go. And quite frankly, we agree. So this year, you guys may be familiar with us. We've got a lovely consensus statement on our website about locked versus unlocked cabinets. And we're very, very much in the camp of having an unlocked AED cabinet in the community. We were approached by NHS England, who have received complaints that, or concerns that cabinets within their local community are registered on the circuit, but sometimes that information may not be as up to date as it could be. So the lock code may be different or it may be missing. And therefore that adds an unnecessary delay into providing that urgent patient care, for when that time is really, really critical. So we work with our stakeholders and partner organisations, so St John and British Heart Foundation, as well as other key individuals, to review the information we had in our statement, and we've made it a lot more robust and stronger. We've used key data from the circuit, so we've already mentioned it's the National Defibrillation Network. There's around 90,000 defibs on the circuit registered at the moment, and it actually shows that theft and vandalism is less than 2% across the UK. So when you put that information together, actually, if you think about why is there a lock on the cabinet, it makes it look like it's a desirable item, it's something in there is worth stealing, where actually it's not. And actually, by having the lock removed, it doesn't increase the chance of survival at all. But we also recognise that in some areas across the UK, theft and crime are higher than the average. So therefore, there may be a need to have some form of preventive measure on the device to highlight its importance and why it's there. And I will be stealing Lisa's quote from the end of her session earlier, where it said, the defib is there not just for community, it's because we care about the community. And I think these types of messages really hit home quite hard. So that's on our website. It's been signed by many organisations. Use it to your advantage if you've got any groups coming to you asking about information about what do they do, what do they need to do, and think about putting a public access defib within their community. Going to the bottom slide, we've got the resuscitation on the field of play document. I'm quite proud of this, and it's quite an exciting document. We were approached by a member of our community and ambulance resuscitation subcommittee to talk about challenges about providing resuscitation care at elite sporting events. And we've certainly seen this over the last couple of years where there's been high-profile events of cardiac arrest happen, particularly in football, and we've seen it on TV. There are challenges afoot there because with TV organisations and such, there could be penalties if a play is suspended for whatever reason because of scheduling. But our priority is always down to that patient and that person on the field. We know that if you're an elite sports person, that you're at higher risk of having a sudden cardiac arrest for that patient population. But actually the outcomes are really quite good and quite high. So what we've done is work with other organisations such as the Football Association, Rugby, as well as the Olympic Committee, medical squad, to look at writing a document which talks about resuscitation on the field of play. And I must admit, that's the cleanest football I've ever seen on a football pitch. But it doesn't just look at football. This looks at any sporting environment. And it talks about thinking about you as a core team member resuscitating at that point. Think about having up to 6 minutes, so 3 shocks from a defib, and then thinking about how you're going to get your patient off that pitch. Where are they going to? What care do they need? Thinking about what your local policies are for skills and drills and simulation to really hone down what you need to do as an elite medical squad. Okay, and I say this goes through absolutely any organisation, if you're working in equestrian, if you're working with sea sports, water sports, and stuff like that. So this is a really good document we produced this year. If you want access to it, it's free on our website, and it's also published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine as well as a public access, free access document. Big thing in the middle here, which we're really proud of, which is our quality survivors quality standard. And Mark is going to talk about this in a bit more detail, but this was launched a couple of weeks ago at Holyrood, so we're really pleased that we can talk to you about this today, or talk to you today about this. It's our first quality standard where we've looked at survivors. So those of you who are familiar with our quality standards, they talk about providing robust resuscitation services, training and guidance, particularly in healthcare organisations. And it very much concentrates on what happens in those 4 walls within a hospital. But this goes above and beyond this. So we recognise that actually there is that forgotten group, which are cardiac arrest survivors and their co-survivors. So when we talk about co-survivors, we talk about their family members, their friends, people who are there with them when they've had a cardiac arrest or who have supported them afterwards. If you have a cardiac arrest due to an etiology like an MI, you'll fall under a post-cardiac arrest, sort of a post-recovery cardiac recovery plan. If you're in the community, you've had a cardiac arrest, it's unknown etiology, you won't fall into any rehabilitation service. Similarly, if you're in hospital and you've had a cardiac arrest due to sepsis, again, you won't necessarily fall under a pathway for rehabilitation care. But what we know from speaking to these individuals is they have cognitive impairment, or some do, they might have emotional well-being issues, they might have physical impairment, and it's a huge traumatic event. It's the ultimate medical emergency. So what this document does, it provides advice and guidance about that initial support that we can provide them, where to signpost for additional support, and looking at that long-term care of individuals. Two things that always hit home. I had the pleasure of presenting this at the Southern Cardiac Arrest UK conference last year that we were introducing and looking at doing this as well as some of our campaigning. And you had a cardiac arrest survivor who couldn't live in their own home because of the trauma being associated with being in that building. So they lived in their caravan. Had someone else's wife couldn't go shopping because their son had a cardiac arrest in the supermarket. And it's these types of things which are often left unexplored, and this is now about providing help and guidance and support for this population. Going down to the bottom, we've got two lovely young people running around in orange jumpsuits. So again, on that film of survivors and providing support, it's not just support about the people in the community, it's what can we do for ourselves and us as healthcare professionals. And if we think about cardiac arrests, as healthcare professionals, you're expected to be able to manage them and deal with them, and then go on to the next patient and continue your day. But we know that doesn't necessarily happen like that, and we can all remember those times where we've been to a cardiac arrest and it's hit hard and it's hit home. So we've released a document called our Wellbeing Survivor Responder document, and that looks at how we as healthcare professionals can help support each other and what support we may need from our service providers as well, and what we can do to help become more resilient and think about coping strategies. So have a look at that document. It's a really, really well-written document. And particularly when I look at this room, and I know most people in here are probably paramedics, and you guys deal with the most cardiac arrests in probably some more challenging situations. And then finally, for me, in the top-hand corner there, I'm going to be talking about our out-of-hospital course program. And this is really quite exciting. A lot of the stuff we do is quite exciting, actually. I'm very biased. We are developing a program of courses specifically aimed for practitioners in an out-of-hospital environment, so doctors, nurses, paramedics. And that's not saying that our current portfolio course is wrong. It doesn't mean it needs it. It absolutely does. But there are challenges and uniqueness in that out-of-hospital environment that us as hospital-based clinicians don't necessarily understand or perceive, such as like human factors and those non-technical skills. Think about the environment, think about transporting patients, and there's some clear, significant clinical elements within that course, like a traumatic cardiac arrest and management that we don't necessarily have to deal with in hospital, but you guys on scene. So we've tailored an ALS course, an advanced life support course for the pre-hospital environment. And that will be hopefully launching in next year. We're in our current proof of concept stage, which is where we test the product to make sure it works. And when we go into piloting, I'm really excited to say that Basics in Scotland is going to be one of our first pilot centres. So I think this is a real great opportunity where we can help serve our out-of-hospital community. Along with the out-of-hospital ALS program, we've just launched our out-of-hospital newborn life support course as well. Again, recognising that actually when you're dealing with an infant, a newborn, which needs resuscitating, that can also be quite a unique event in an out-of-hospital environment, and we don't have those same considerations that we need in an in-hospital environment. So again, it meets the needs, and particularly looking at our paramedic cohort and our midwifery cohort who will go to those emergencies. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Marcus, who's going to now talk about some of our comms and engagement stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone. I'm Marcus. I'm the Policy and Public Affairs Lead at Resuscitation Council UK. A couple of confessions first. Whenever I come north of the border, really inspired and quite envious sometimes by the innovation and ideas that you have here. And the second is that I often quite like to try and take them home and pretend that they're mine. So James, my boss, is in the room, so guilty as charged. In the time I'm up here, I'd just like to talk about a few pieces of work that Resus Council have done this year and how we can support some of the great work that you guys at Save the Life of Scotland are doing. So the first I'd like to talk about is Every Second Counts. It's a report that Resus Council launched at the start of this year, and it looks at inequalities spanning all links in the chain of survival. I think the top line message from this report, which has been somewhat echoed from the data and evidence that has already been shared, is that there's a clear social gradient between deprived communities across the UK and survival outcomes for out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. I know Gareth touched on it at the start of today, but we know that if you're in a deprived part of Scotland, you're 2 times more likely to have a cardiac arrest and much less likely to have access to a defib. That's the case across the UK. We've also found other inequalities such as ethnicity. For example, if you are in an area where non-white British is the majority ethnicity, you'll probably have around 4 defibs for every 10,000 people in that area. That contrasts against around 14 defibs per 10,000 for majority white British areas. So there's a clear inequality there that we need to target and address. Finally, the encouraging thing that we saw from our work is that from the research we did with underserved communities, quite often, yes, there will be high incidence of cardiac arrest. There'll be a good experience of family members or friends or families who are connected with a cardiac arrest. And unfortunately, there won't be that tailored access to CPR training. But the real take-home we took is that there was a much greater appetite for CPR training than the national average. So there is a real example there that for those underserved communities, if we can tailor, if we can co-produce, if we can design with communities the resources that we know can save lives, then that's something that we can aspire to do. So the next thing I'd like to focus on, which Adam touched on somewhat, is our survivor piece. In the comms and engagement team, we've been working on a campaign called My Right to Cardiac Arrest Recovery. And I'd like to actually blame a number of you for creating this problem in the room. And that's that more people are surviving a cardiac arrest. I think at the start of this session, Gareth mentioned there were an additional 1,023 people who are here today because of the work that you all do. You know, that's an incredible number, but we're learning with the survivors and co-survivors that we meet. Quite often, once you have that success story and you are discharged from hospital, there will be a number of continuous daily, weekly, monthly challenges, whether that's emotional, physical, or neurological, that need to be addressed. For us, you know, it's quite a simple intervention that we think can have a real impact on survivors and co-survivors, and that's why we've created our quality standard, which we hope to roll out across Scotland's 14 health boards. I can see my eyesight here, Vicky Joshi, who'll be speaking later in kind of more detail about the granularity of this subject, but we have already had some great support from Scottish Government. We had an event a couple of weeks ago which the Public Health Minister spoke to, but we really need to ensure that like survivors of a stroke or of cancer or other kind of formal pathways, survivors of cardiac arrest can have their right to a full recovery. And then finally, I would like to touch on our new and exciting launch, which is Resus Ready. Ellen, I know you mentioned that the Minister talked about the pad map that the Bens are working on being the eyes for the Minister, but we hope that Resus Ready can be the hands, without sounding too cliche. But Resus Ready is going to be a map of all the individuals, organisations within Scotland and across the UK that are able to save a life. So it could be an individual who has had CPR training in the last 12 months. It can be an accredited form of CPR training across a variety of different organisations. We hope that this map can really create a nation of lifesavers, but it can also show us where we need to focus our attention. So in those hotspot areas where we know maybe more tailored support is needed for that CPR training offer, Resus Ready can be the solution. And this is something we've worked and developed with Save a Life of Scotland, and we hope that you can promote after today. I'm going to go into what I hope will be a video of the launch.
I had a cardiac arrest at 3 o'clock in the morning. My son was woken up by me gasping for air.
His eyes were completely rolled into the back of his head. There was no pulse. I thought he was dead. Adrenaline took over. I was trying to be as brave as I could to perform CPR until the paramedics came. It was around 22 minutes. I never would have imagined that learning CPR at school at the age of 15, I would need to perform on my dad 10 years later.
I am very lucky. I am one of the small percentage of people who survived an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest. Everybody deserves the chance to survive. The more people that have these skills, the more chance we'll have of people surviving. I am proud to be Resus Ready.
Meridian Football Club is really important for the community. This year marks our 20th year anniversary. Tragically, last year, one of our players and our friend, Robert, passed away from cardiac arrest. It really took us by surprise. Since that time, we've been much more aware of cardiac issues. We want everybody to know how to resuscitate someone. It's really important for us to bring awareness about resuscitation in our community, especially to these communities which are a little bit more deprived. Looking after your heart is good, eating well is good, exercising is good. We want to pass on that tradition to the younger generation. Meridian Football Club is stepping up so that we can be Resus Ready. It was really easy and quick to register. I'm very proud that Meridian Football Club is Resus Ready.
Cardiac health is really important to the football club and to our whole local community. We had a technical director, Robert Rowan, who died at the age of 28 following a cardiac myopathy.
Our Heart of West London initiative brings together key organisations in the cardiac health world, and we use our collective voice and the power of sport to really spread awareness of cardiac health. We put the Resuscitation Council UK's heart-shaped CPQR code on the front of our shirts for a home game each season.
We are Resus Ready.
Are you?
Our fans, our community support us, and we want to make sure we as a club support them.
Our ambition alongside the Resuscitation Council UK is to make sure that as many people as possible have the skills to save a life in CPR. The more knowledge we can disseminate about CPR training, the more lives we can save. It's as simple as that. We're proud to be Resus Ready.
Get Resus Ready today by learning CPR and help us light up the map.
Thank you very much. That's everything.